Rambam. We are in the 10th book, the book of Tahara, of purity, and we're learning now about imparting impurity from someone who's impure through sitting, lying, and riding. Which we're in chapter 7, because the holidays, we started this already. Let's go. Azav is someone, a man that has a discharge. It's not a seminal discharge. It's a different kind of discharge that makes him impure. Okay. So the Zav imparts impurity to an article on which one lies, sits, or rides in 5 ways. So by standing above them, you're standing, right? Sitting above them, lying above them, hanging from them, or leaning on them. Okay. So he's going to explain. What does imply? When there's an article on which one lies, okay, we're speaking of the person who's impure, right? Because they're a zav, right? So I don't know I don't think we know what that means today exactly. What that, um, we explained previously. It's a semen is more of a whitish, and this is more of a different kind of discharge. It's not, huh? I don't know. It's just a different coloring. It might be us, it's a different kind of coloring.
Us, maybe?
Huh?
Us. Like, sorry.
They say it's similar to something like gonorrhea.
Okay.
But that doesn't mean that's what it is.
In that case, it doesn't have sperm.
Right. Right.
You're not wasting
When there is an article on which one lies, sits, or rides, even if it is under a stone, which a stone doesn't, remember, stone is natural, so natural things do not get impure. Things, implements, right? Meaning things that you made because they're now a vessel. So a vessel can contain good stuff or bad stuff. The theory of it, right? Something that's natural creation, no. So like a stone, right? So even if it's under a stone, but now we're talking about, let's say the Zav is sitting on something, and underneath what he's sitting, there's a stone and things underneath that, right? One person who imparts impurity to the articles in which he lies, sits, or stands, lies one stone or hangs from it or leans on it, since he was in some way supported by this article, it becomes the primary source of impurity.
Physically come in contact.
What?
You have to physically come in contact.
Yeah. Or like we said, not you're lying on it, so it could be it's underneath. You're not on it specifically.
Sure.
Exactly. And in these 5 articles, acts rather, is included in the term midrash whenever it is used. Okay. Similarly, an object on which one lies and rides imparts impurity to the person in 7 ways. So now let's say the article is impure, right? You're riding on an animal and and the saddle is impure, right? That's a simple thing because you're right on the saddle and you're riding it. So, right. So you become impure. And now he gives 5 ways. In the 5 listed in the previous halacha, right, which we mentioned, leaning on it, lying on it, sitting on it, right, riding on it, and now also at touching and by carrying. What is implied? When a zav is supported by an article in which one lies or rides and thus imparted impurity to it, the person touches or carries that article, he contracts impurity. So here, the zav, let's say, is, he's sitting on a chair. that article now becomes impure. A person who touches it, another person who touches it, right, becomes impure. Huh? Not because they touched the Zav, they touched the chair, yeah, which he was sitting, right?
It's more direct than before.
Okay.
Yes.
So that person contracts impurity, right? What is this impurity? This impurity just is about whether you could eat tithes in Jerusalem, whether you could eat truma if you're a kohen, right? Those things need to be done in purity. To eat breakfast, have a bagel and lox and cream cheese, you don't have to be pure, right? To eat breakfast, you don't have to be pure. To do a holy act of eating the tithes in second tithes in Jerusalem, or if you're a kohen, the truma, for that you need to be pure. Okay, just to give us context for what we're talking about over here. Okay, is that clear? Right. So, but of course, these laws are important to know because then, and this is in times of Holy Temple. It's not today. Not today. We don't have those mitzvahs today. They are bound up with the Holy Temple. They're bound up with, majority of the Jewish people living in Israel. But God willing, Mashiach is coming, so we'll need.
Today.
Amen. Similarly, one contracts impurity if one sits on it, stands on it, lies on it, hangs from it, or leans on it, even if a stone separating between the person who was pure and the impure support. In other words, someone who's a Zav is now, let's say he's sitting on the chair and there's a stone next to it, right? Separating. And you touch, make sure I got this right.
On the chair.
Separating between the person who was pure and the impure support. One who sits on the article, which is of Sat, according to your tradition, it's not that the place on which the Zav sits and imparts impurity causes a person who is pure, who sits there to contract impurity. Now, just as a Zav imparts impurity to the object on which one rides or sits, that is beneath a stone, right? Now, the Zav, let's say he was sitting on a saddle, but there was a stone on top of it, or whatever, right? There was a stone, not a brick, because brick is man-made, right? A stone, right? A slab of marble that was cut out. What crazy, whatever, doesn't matter, right? So he didn't touch the saddle directly. Saddle still becomes impure, right? Because he's being supported by it. He's on it. Not directly, doesn't matter, right? That's the point over here. Is that clear?
So stone doesn't become impure.
The stone doesn't separate, doesn't stop from the impurity, right? Even though it doesn't become impure because it's not an implement. It's a natural creation, right?
Yes.
So now, just as the stuff imparts impurity to an object on which one rides or sits, that is beneath the stone. So I gave the example of the saddle, right? Maybe it's not a good example. Or the better example would be a chair, and you have a marble slab on top of it, and he sat on it, right? He didn't touch the chair itself. Doesn't matter. The point is not, because touching is one way to bring impurity. Sitting is another way. Sitting means that you're not sitting directly on the thing. Otherwise, you're touching it, right? Otherwise, you're touching it. So it means you're sitting, even though there's something that's separating you from what you're sitting upon. It still becomes impure. Okay?
It doesn't exist.
It's as if the stone doesn't exist, right? For the fact of making it impure, right? So too can a pure person contract impurity from an object on which one rides or sits that is beneath the stone, even though the zav is not on the object on which one sits. So now let's say the pure person is going now on that saddle or on this chair. It's impure, the chair, but there's there's a stone that he's sitting on, he still becomes impure. Right? Even though he's not directly, because he's sitting on it.
On stone.
On the snow. He's sitting on a chair that has a stone that makes him not sitting directly on the chair, but he's still sitting on a chair.
Again, it's
Right.
okay.
Right?
Yes.
Now he's just bringing out the fact, just like the Zav makes it impure. So likewise, the person who is pure and was sitting there becomes impure in a similar manner. A person who contracts impurity, who is above the midrash, imparts impurity to his garments as long as he does not separate from the article that imparted impurity to him, as we explained. Okay.
His garments, okay. He has to wash his garments in the mikvah.
Yeah. I'm not exactly clear on that. Okay, number 3. A Zav. Thank you. A Zav does not impart impurity to an object upon which one lies until the majority of the body is supported by the object upon which one lies. So now he's giving a definition. What does it mean that the Zav, I mean, he's impure, right? And by sitting or lying on something, so now he's lying on a couch. How much does he need to lie on the couch in order to be considered lying? It has to be the majority of the body of the person. So if he was sitting, let's say on the floor, oh, he came to put on tefillin?
Yeah.
Good man. Do you want okay. We'll be there. We're just finishing this halacha. We're going to finish this halacha. And okay. Take a seat. Take a seat. So let's say you're sitting on the floor and there's a couch and you're leaning on the couch, right? But only your head is on the couch. That's on the majority of your body. So then you're not considered, you did not impart impurity. Lying means that the majority of your body is lying on the object that therefore you'd be, right? So if you're lying entirely your body on it, then of course that would impart impurity. But if let's say you're on, let's say this is a couch. I'm sitting on the floor, someone's sitting on the floor here and just puts he's just leaning or lying just his elbow, right? Or just, one arm. That's not the majority of the body. So therefore he would not impart impurity.
Does the whole couch become impure?
Yes.
And if he's on the floor, does the whole floor become impure?
No, because the floor is not a vessel. A
Okay.
couch is a something, right? Right? It's an implement, right?
Yes,
Right? It's an implement,
on structure.
right? Or a vessel of sorts, right? If, however, only a lesser part of the body is supported by it, since he did not touch it, he remains pure. Now, important, it had to be that he didn't touch it. And there was a blanket in between. So he didn't touch the couch itself. I think that's what it means. So what does it imply? Let's see. If a lesser portion of the portion of the impure person's body is on the surface on which one lies, and the lesser portion of the pure person's body is on the same surface. Okay. So here you got two bits. It's a couch, so it's meant for several people to sit, right? Let's say the impure person's body is on the surface of it.
Can I get something like a bagel?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Please do.
Toasted?
Oh, this,
Cream cheese?
yeah.
So let's say a lesser portion of the impure person's body is on the surface, and then a lesser portion of the pure person's body is on the same surface. Right? Right? His body was supported. So as part of it, by it is pure. right? Then it'd be pure because they're both lesser than their majority of the body. When the majority of the impure person's body was supported by a lesser portion of the surface on which one lies or rides, that surface becomes impure in its entirety. Similarly, if the majority of the pure person's body was supported by a lesser portion of the impure midras, he becomes impure, even though he was supported only by a lesser portion of the object in which one sits. Why? Because the whole thing was impure. Okay. We're going to stop over here. All right. Thank you, folks.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Be well.